Ayodhya was a city of glistening waters, of sunlit beauty and abundant green. King Dashrath ruled with love and grace, and by his side 3 virtuous queens. But he longed to be a father, for a child to carry forward his name. So he invited an enlightened sage, who lit a sacred fire in prayer. Before long, 4 princes were welcomed. Kaushalya gave birth to Ram. Kaikeyi delivered Bharat. Lakshman and Shatrughna came last. Dashrath showered his boys with love. He taught them right from wrong. And with knowledge of scriptures and warfare, they grew noble, brave, and strong. Dashrath looked on in bliss, but thought it was now time for Ram, the eldest prince, to find himself a bride. Ram was taken to Mithila, where Princess Sita was to choose her groom. Kings and princes from far and wide now eagerly filled the room. Before them the gilded bow of Shiv, which was to be lifted and strung, and only he who succeeded would be Sita's chosen one. But not one suitor among them could lift the bow from the ground, until Ram emerged, strung it with ease, and broke it with a thunderous sound. Sita stepped forward with a garland. She placed it around Ram's neck. With their parents' blessings, they were married, and back to Ayodhya they went. One day, Dashrath saw his reflection. He noticed strands of grey, a sign that he was aging, a sign of passing days. He announced that his eldest son Ram would be crowned king the next day. The entire kingdom rejoiced, and preparations were soon underway. But the hunchbacked maid Mantra cast a shadow in the mind of Kaikeyi. "If Ram becomes king," she whispered, "your son Bharat will be enslaved." She reminded Kaikeyi of 2 wishes she'd been granted by Dashrath in the past. So Kaikeyi called the king to her chamber and began to make demands. "I wish for my son to be king," she sobbed, "and I wish for the exile of Ram. For 14 years I wish him gone. This is all I've ever asked." The king staggered to the ground, and Ram was brought to his side. "As a son, it is my duty," said Ram, "to fulfill my parents' desires." Ram prepared to leave for the forest, Lakshman and Sita by his side. In saffron robes they mounted a chariot, and a crowd gathered to say goodbye. In the depths of tranquil nature, Ram, Lakshman and Sita found peace. Together they built a home beside flowers and gurgling streams. But one day the demoness Surpankha, while passing by their hut, cast her eyes on Ram and immediately fell in love. In a graceful maiden guise, she approached and asked for his hand. "I am already married," he replied. "I hope you understand." So Surpankha turned to Lakshman, but she was denied again. In fury, she lunged at Sita, the one obstacle in her way. Lakshman ran to Sita's aid. He sliced off Surpankha's nose with his sword. In horror, she clutched her bloodied face. "You'll be sorry," she roared. Surpankha begged her brother Ravan to avenge her pitiful disgrace, so he sent a demon disguised as a deer to graze before Ram's place. Sita spotted the golden deer. She watched it shimmer in delight. I'm enchanted by its beauty, she told Ram. I would love to call it mine. I beg of you, dear Ram, it is one of its kind. Capture it, be quick, and bring it back alive. Ram collected his bow and arrow, told Lakshman not to leave Sita's side. Then he began to chase the deer that darted in and out of his sight. A long distance away from the hut, Ram finally struck the deer in its chest. But in its guise, the demon cried, "Lakshman! Sita! Help!" Lakshman heard Ram's anguished cry, but bound to his word, he couldn't leave. In anger, Sita commanded him, "You will go, your brother is in need." Around the hut with an arrow, Lakshman marked a line. "You will come to no harm," he said to Sita, "as long as you stay inside." Lakshman left, and Ravan arrived, dressed as a hermit in robes. He chanted a prayer, then asked Sita, "Why are you alone?" Sita proudly declared, "I am the wife of Ram. He's the most honorable man you'll find in this entire land." The innocent Sita continued to talk to the hermit at her door. And when she crossed the line to offer him some alms, he cackled and revealed his true form. Sita screamed for Ram, but no one heard her cries. Ravan dragged her into his chariot and ascended into the sky. Ram and Lakshman returned to an empty hut and scattered fruit. Streaming tears and head in hands, they set out to search for clues. On their way, a distraught Ram asked all the animals and trees, "Have you seen my Sita? Do you know where she could be?" But then they met the monkey god Hanuman, an ardent devotee of Ram. "I will help you find Sita," he bowed. "I'll search the entire land." When Hanuman learnt Sita was in Lanka, he asked for permission to leave. And with his superhuman strength, he leapt across the sea. Hanuman landed in Lanka, a lush and prosperous land. He glimpsed Sita at Ravan's palace and returned to tell Lakshman and Ram. Now Hanuman assembled an army of thousands of valiant monkeys. They built a bridge of trees and stones to stretch across the sea. Ravan was waiting with his army, and a violent war ensued. Arrows rained and blood poured, and all of Lanka shook. Daggers, spears, and maces were hurled all around, and many a monkey and warrior came crashing to the ground. Ram's divine arrow eventually reached its mark. It ripped through the air and pierced through Ravan's heart. The incredible battle was done. The sinful Ravan slain. Now all that Ram longed for was to see his Sita again. The union of Ram and Sita was one of joy and tears, and now they would return to Ayodhya after 14 long years. They travelled through the night with Lakshman by their side, and the people of Ayodhya lit lamps to welcome their new king with pride. Today lamps shine bright at Diwali as a reminder that in tough times, good prevails over evil, and darkness is vanquished by light.